Hello and welcome to a little bonus episode in my comparison video series where I look at the French 1935S and 1935A pistols, and it's all thanks to you because one of you put an interesting comment in there. We always appreciate your comments, by the way. He wanted to see the difference on the range between the MAC50 and the P49, the SIG. And that would be something interesting to see. Maybe the results are not so obvious as we think. Now, I'm not going to do this at 50 meters because honestly, the result would be obvious if I do, general teapot target stance at 50. The result's going to be obvious. The SIG is going to be shooting better. There's a reason for that. No, I want to have a more combat-related test. Now, I can't simulate that, of course, but I'll come to what I'm going to do in a second. Going back to the pistols, I had a look. Well, I tried to find what the exercises were for both, and it's evident that on the French side, the maximum combat shooting they were doing, the exercises and so on, were 25 meters at the absolute maximum. Well, I asked ex-soldiers and things, yeah, 25 meters, and if you need to shoot further, well, that's what this is for, which is perfectly reasonable. And on the Swiss side, it's the same. I actually found the manuals for that. Thank you, Dale, our Sturmgewehr 57 aficionado. And there, again, it says, basically it's 15, 20, 25, a little extension to 30, but again, short range, and after that, that's what the SMG is for. But because it is a Swiss service pistol, we had, of course, an additional requirement, and that is it has to be suitable for the service-style civilian shooting. And once again, thanks to Dale, I know exactly what they had to do. So at 50 meters, a freshly minted SIG had to be able to put 7 out of its 8 shots into a rectangle that was 14 centimeters high by 10 centimeters wide. So this big. And of course, we have fully adjustable sights, or replaceable, let's say. This allows it to be adjusted so that it's not only precise, but also accurate. So this group will be small and hopefully centered. For the MAC50, it's a slightly different philosophy. There, of course, the sights are fixed, they're milled into the slide, and it seems to be that you get what you're given. I tried very hard to find some definition of minimum accuracy precision requirements. They must be somewhere, there must be some, but I don't know, maybe they're still classified. What I was able to find out was that they did take every day, they would take a significant sample of the previous day's production and cycle them through a fairly rigorous function test. So their main focus was that it had to work. I guess they assumed that if you're shooting at 20-25 meters, you're going to hit a human-sized target, or at least you're going to get them to get their head down, which is the main aim. So if it's particularly precise, particularly accurate, in the end of the day, who cares? So going back to the test itself, what I proposed is a first series at 25 meters with a precision target, and simply do a magazine full relatively quickly. Obviously I can't replicate combat situation, and certainly not the stress. But I want to spend as less time as possible on the trigger without spraying everywhere. Obviously, in that situation, you don't have time to play with the stages of the trigger if you have one. So yeah, I want to just blast away relatively quickly, and then do it again at 15 meters, this time on a silhouette. Again, try and going a little bit faster. Now, you know what I'm like with shooting quickly. There's probably going to be horrible trigger jerks and stuff, but at least it's constant, it's the same for both. So, let's see what we can do. Okay, here goes. P49 first. Now this is my range gun, let's say. It's what I use for all the Swiss competitions. Now, to remain fair, I have removed my somewhat more ergonomic black plastic grips and replaced them with the wooden service grips. They're the early type, the wooden ones. Always funny to watch yourself back on a video. When I was shooting the series, I was convinced that I was going relatively quickly, but looking at myself, it was still somewhat leisurely. Anyway, we shall see what it looks like on the target. And back it comes. Not too bad, slightly to the left, so perfectly fit for purpose. And now let's switch to the MAC50. Now the grip is totally different, but they are both, funnily enough, quite wide. The actual thickness of the material on both, for the grips of both firearms, are wide, and it's quite weird because if they had reduced the thickness of the grips and slightly increased the width of the frames, there would have been more than enough space for a double stacked magazine, but it was just not in the doctrine and spirit of European firearms at the time. So let's see how it performs. Alright, so the group is ever so slightly bigger, but perfectly adequate again. Alright, now let's speed things up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's better. Well, he's not getting back up again. You can see there's slight climbing of shooting fast, but nicely centered. And lastly, 50 again. A little bit slower than with the SIG, because I'm used to the other one. So they pretty much have the same group size, just slightly off to the right due to my awful trigger finger. So the results are quite interesting to me. On one side we have the MAC50, which is sort of manufactured along looser tolerancing and more focused on reliability, and the P49, which is, of course, also has to be reliable, but also focused a little bit on precision and accuracy, far finer machining and an exquisite trigger. But when it comes down to having to sling lead downrange in a hurry, the advantage doesn't seem to bring anything, and the results are actually comparable. I think the most contributing factor is the person behind the trigger. Now clearly you could see the advantage of having adjustable sights, because the groups of the SIG are far more centered than on the MAC50. MAC50, if I really want to do some target work, I'm going to have to aim off. And that's just the way it is. So I hope that was vaguely interesting, and whoever it was that asked the question, that was your little present, New Year's present for you. I hope you enjoyed that. So thank you again for watching. Thank you again for your support wherever it may come from, or whatever platform you choose, and we'll see you very soon on the range or in the workshop.